everyone, today we're going to be looking at Slimline cards. I've got some tips and tricks for you. We're going to be making this as a Halloween card, but these tips and tricks apply to any type of slimline that you want to make. I'm going to be using a couple things from scrapbook.com today. I'm going to use this spider web, and it's got a trick or treat as its sentiment on there, and then these bats. I want to show you how easy these cards are to put together, and I know that some people are hesitant to make a slimline card, so I'm going to go over the sizes that you need, and I'm going to tell you some of the reasons that I love using slimline cards. I think that it's really a great thing to try, and maybe you want to give it a little go. You do not have to have special stamps or anything like that. You can make them from whatever you have. So let's get right into this video, and we will look at some different tips and tricks for this. Alright, if you hadn't done it yet, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. That helps me out so much and I appreciate it. I love stamp sets like this for slimlines that are made this way because then you have the sentiment, it fits perfectly in the middle. This card is going to be very simple. Lots of heat embossing, a little texture, a little bit of die cutting. But the reason that I love this size slimline is because these envelopes are so inexpensive. I use them to pay my bills. They're called number 10, and I'm gonna pop up the size for you on here. But I pop, with mine, I do 4.125 by 9.5. That's the size that they just come in. These are regular old envelopes. Now, as far as my card, I like to make my slimline cards as 3.5 by 8.5. So you can see I've got extra room, but I want to be able to fit it well in the envelope, and also if something's sticking off the edge, all that. So it gives you a lot of options. I'm going to pop up that size of my way to do an A10, and it's exactly the size of this stamp set. It's 3.5 by 8.5. So basically you keep your paper the same, you keep the short end of your paper, and then you cut it 8.5 by 7, and you can score in the middle. So that makes the perfect slimline card. I'm going to pop those numbers up for you. So a lot of people wonder how they're going to stamp something this large. Well, I have the standard size MISTI right here, and this fits inside of it. It barely does, but it fits inside. For me, I prefer to use the memory MISTI when I'm stamping, but you can also take your stamp off and use the outside. So I am going to stamp the envelope with the outside. So I'm going to show you how this works so that you realize that you can use your MISTI for these as well. So we'll place our stamp on the outside window right here, and we're going to use that to stamp the front of our envelope. So if you're going to use the door of your MISTI to stamp, I have a mat here, but I'm going to take out the mat from inside my MISTI because I want that extra, I guess it's cushioning that kind of helps it stamp better. And then I've got this sticky mat right here that I'm going to stick my envelope to. I'm going to use a little bit of washi tape just to hold everything down because this sticky mat is not sticky on the back, so it's not sticking to that foam cushion that I have right there. So I wanted to tape that down, and then I'm going to line my envelope up on this sticky part. So I will show you how I do that. My envelopes that I have here have a little bit of texture to them, so this isn't going to stamp super crisp, but when I'm doing Halloween cards especially, I feel like having that almost like distressed, not perfect look will be really cool. So I'm going to add some washi tape where I can write in the address. So this is basically creating masking so that I'll have blank areas in the middle where I can put an address in some fancy handwriting, even in some handwriting that might look scary. I think that would be so cool for Halloween. So I'm going to ink this up, and now that I've got it at the right place where I know it's going to hit my card, because you can check that a couple times. I love that this door is clear so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to use one of my dark black inks, and like I said, it's going to be more of a distressed look because I know you can't tell in this white envelope, but the one that I happen to grab is actually textured, so you're not going to get perfectly crisp on this, but I think that's perfectly fine. I think it's going to look really cool. So I'm going to show you how to do this, and just remember, this isn't just for envelopes. This is if you do not have a place to do big stamps like this, you can use the door of your MISTI. This door is bigger than the inside area, so it gives you a lot of options. I did put a lot of pressure on it, and here's what it looks like. I just love it. Okay, look at this. So now when this ink dries a little bit, I'll pull these strips off and it'll leave me a place to put the address and the name of the person getting this card. Okay, so here's how these strips come off after the ink is dry, which is gonna leave a nice little place for us to put an address. It's gonna look so cute. I'm gonna show you with the card so you can see how cute that looks, and then we're gonna go into making the card. I know we did this a little bit backwards, but I wanted to give you some tips and show you how envelopes to me make all the difference in a slimline. I feel like searching for envelopes sometimes is a little bit of a problem, and having to make them is a little bit of a problem. So I love having these standard size that are always in my house to pay bills that I can throw a card in. So see how cute that looks? Oh, it's gonna be so cute. Okay, let's make the card now. Okay, to make the card, I said I was going to use my Memory MISTI. Now, a Memory MISTI is a 12 by 12 MISTI, and so that's that same general idea. It's not my favorite to use just because it can be cumbersome, but when you've got a large stamp like this, it's very nice to be able to lay it out. I'm using black cardstock, and we are going to stamp in VersaFine so that we can heat emboss all this spider webs. So I love seeing metallic spider webs. I don't know why, but I just think it looks really cool. So we're gonna heat emboss this in silver. Now you will notice that I coated this with powder. I did a couple different powder tools just to make sure I got it. And that scares a lot of people with black because you can see those lines so easily on it. But this is very easy to get off. Do not let it discourage you from heat embossing on black paper, because heat embossing on black paper looks amazing. Okay, so I'm using VersaMark. I'm gonna stamp it twice with this large stamp positioner, this MISTI. I usually do put a decent amount of pressure on the stamp to make sure I get a good image, especially an image this detailed. This covers the whole thing, so you want to really make sure that you've got everything covered. So I usually do it at least twice, and then we'll add the silver embossing powder and I'll show you how it looks. With a large piece of paper like this, I usually hold mine at an angle and put it into a coffee filter, and then I'll tap the first half off and flip the sides over. Now you could just get yourself a big piece of copy paper and bend it in half. I just always use coffee filters because they're easy and I don't have any copy paper in my craft room. So I'm doing this half and then I'll switch it over to this side and do the other half. Once I have my embossing powder on here, I'm gonna tap it really well to make sure that all the excess comes off, but then I'm gonna go back with a fine little paintbrush and make sure that I didn't miss anything. When you are heat embossing on black and you're using a color like silver or white, sometimes it's hard to tell if it's just the powder on the background or if it's little flakes of the embossing powder. And if you are not sure, make sure you use a little paintbrush to try to get those areas off. And if they don't move, then they're the powder. If they do, then they are the embossing powder. And if you leave those little speckles of embossing powder on there, you're gonna have little speckles of silver everywhere when you heat it up. It doesn't seem like a big deal before you heat it up, but once it's heated up, it's obvious. Okay, now we've got it all heat embossed and all this powder. So I use a microfiber cloth. I move everything off and then I just slowly, you don't want to rub your embossing off, but I just slowly rub this off and you're going to be amazed at how easily all that powder comes off the back. I usually rub it a couple times and I double check a few times to make sure I'm not rubbing any of the shininess off, which I have never done. I just always make sure that I don't. But it just looks perfect. I love embossing on black, so give it a try if you haven't tried it yet. Now the sentiment's the trick or treat, and I heat emboss this in both white and silver just to kind of give myself an idea. And there's something about the white, it almost looks like it's glowing on this card. I thought that I would keep it all the same with the silver, but the white just shows up and looks so good on it that I decided to stick with white embossing powder for the actual wording. I used to be terrified to use white embossing powder on black, but I'm telling you, if you use the process of wiping it off with your little paintbrush, it works so well and it looks amazing. I feel like a card with this much paper on it, which we're gonna have die cuts, we're gonna have the sentiment cut up and put on top of this nice heat embossed piece of paper, always looks good with some type of texture. So I'm gonna use some twine as my texture, and I happened upon this white, maybe off-white twine that has this metallic dark color in it, and I thought that looks perfect. So I'm just going to tape this to the back of the card front, and then we'll add the sentiment. Here's the pattern that I made so that it meets in the middle, and then we'll cut out the sentiment in a square and put it on top of that. So I've already cut the square out. I'm going to add some foam tape to the back and put this in the middle. You notice that I will put a little bit of a liquid adhesive on my foam as well, especially when I'm placing something that needs to be centered like this. I just want to make sure I've got a little bit of play and a little bit of ability to kind of move it around. If you just use it as the foam tape without your glue, you can't move it once you set it down. So I like to use my grid mat so I can see where my center is and place it, but I still like that freedom to move it around and adjust things ever so slightly with the liquid glue. Now for this card, I like keeping the symmetry. Since I put something directly in the middle, I decided to use the exact same size bats versus using different sizes. I did cut out two and do a little shadow of the black behind my silver cardstock. That silver cardstock is from Fawn, and I like doing glue on the black piece because I can move my little outline around. And I know it's a little hard to see once it's down on the card, but that outline just gives it a cute look. And I'm going to pop these up with some foam tape just to give a little bit more 3D element to this card. I just love how cute this turned out. I hope all of you have enjoyed this project. And if you haven't done it yet, make sure that you try a Slimline. I put all of the information about the sizes, if that gets you confused, in the front of this video. I'll also include those in the description. The other thing that will be in the description are the links to all of these products. Now, those are affiliate links, which means they give me a small commission. But if you're going to scrapbook.com today at all, even if you're not buying these products, clicking on those links helps me so much, and it does not cost you anything. So if you want to see more videos, next week we're doing color combinations, and I produce a video every week, so I'd love to have you here. Make sure you hit that subscribe and like, and I hope to see you again really soon. Bye!